Fear, it's a powerful emotion, capable of paralyzing even the bravest hearts. In Israel today, fear is a palpable presence, a shadow that looms large over the nation. This fear is not of an external enemy, but of something far more insidious: civil war. Chilling 46% of Israelis fear an internal conflict, according to a sobering August 2024 poll by the Jerusalem Post. This stark statistic lays bare the deep divisions that are fracturing Israeli society, pushing it closer to the brink than ever before. The very foundations of this once united nation are being shaken, leaving citizens to grapple with the terrifying possibility of their country tearing itself apart. This is not mere hyperbole. The fear is real, and it's rooted in a series of deeply concerning developments. The political climate has become increasingly toxic, with rhetoric becoming more inflammatory and divisive. The chasm between different segments of Israeli society is widening, fueled by mistrust, anger, and a sense of betrayal. The very fabric of Israeli society, once held together by a shared sense of purpose and identity, is fraying at the seams. The consequences of inaction are dire. A descent into civil war would be catastrophic for all Israelis, regardless of their political affiliation. It would mean the unraveling of a nation built on the ashes of the Holocaust, a betrayal of the dreams of its founders. The fear gripping Israel today is a wake-up call, a desperate plea for reason and unity in a nation teetering on the edge. The question now is, will this fear be a catalyst for change, or will it be the harbinger of a nightmare scenario? The answer lies in the hands of Israel's leaders and its people. At the heart of this growing crisis stand the policies of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. His government's actions, widely perceived as divisive and discriminatory, have further inflamed tensions within Israeli society. Critics argue that Netanyahu has consistently prioritized his own political survival over the well-being of the nation, enacting policies that cater to his base while alienating large segments of the population. One of the most contentious issues has been the government's handling of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Netanyahu's hardline stance, characterized by continued settlement expansion in the West Bank and a refusal to engage in meaningful peace negotiations, has drawn international condemnation and fueled Palestinian anger. This in turn has exacerbated tensions within Israel, with right-wing factions pushing for even more aggressive policies, while left-wing groups decry the government's actions as counterproductive and morally reprehensible. The economic policies pursued by Netanyahu's government have also been a source of contention. Critics argue that these policies have primarily benefited the wealthy, while leaving many ordinary Israelis struggling to make ends meet. This has led to accusations that Netanyahu is out of touch with the needs of ordinary citizens and is more interested in protecting the interests of the elite. The widening gap between the rich and poor is seen as a major contributing factor to the growing sense of inequality and resentment that pervades Israeli society. The fear is that Netanyahu's policies are pushing Israel down a dangerous path, eroding the very foundations of democracy and sowing the seeds of division and distrust. The longer he remains in power, the greater the risk that these divisions will become insurmountable, pushing Israel closer to the brink of civil war. A few figures in Israeli politics are as polarizing as Itamar Ben-Gvir. A far-right politician known for his incendiary rhetoric and extremist views, Ben-Gvir has become a lightning rod for controversy, his name synonymous with the deep divisions plaguing Israeli society. To his supporters, he is a fearless champion of Jewish rights, a bulwark against what they perceive as the existential threat posed by Palestinian terrorism and Arab nationalism. To his detractors, he is a dangerous demagogue, a provocateur who thrives on stoking the flames of hatred and fear. Ben-Gvir's rise to prominence is a symptom of the growing influence of the far right in Israeli politics. His inflammatory rhetoric, often bordering on hate speech, finds a receptive audience among a segment of the population disillusioned with the status quo and receptive to his message of Jewish supremacy and intolerance towards Palestinians. His presence in the Knesset, Israel's parliament, is a stark reminder of the mainstreaming of extremist views and the erosion of democratic norms. Ben-Gvir's critics argue that his actions are not only deeply divisive but also incredibly dangerous. They accuse him of inciting violence against Palestinians and of undermining the already fragile peace in the region. His presence in the government is seen as a direct threat to the two-state solution, the only viable path to a lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. The fear is that Ben-Gvir's brand of extremist politics will continue to gain traction, further polarizing Israeli society and pushing the country closer to the brink. His rise to prominence is a stark warning sign, a canary in the coal mine, signaling the fragility of Israeli democracy and the very real threat of a descent into chaos and violence. Section 4. The Gaza conflict, a deepening wound in the Israeli psyche. The spectre of the recent Gaza conflict, a brutal chapter in the long and bloody Israeli-Palestinian conflict, hangs heavy over the current climate of fear and division in Israel. The conflict, which raged from October 2023 to May 2024, resulted in a staggering loss of life and left an indelible scar on the collective psyche of both Israelis and Palestinians. The images of destruction, the stories of unimaginable suffering, and the sense of hopelessness have fueled a cycle of anger, resentment, and fear that threatens to consume both societies. The conflict, sparked by a series of events that remain shrouded in controversy, quickly escalated into a full-blown war, with both sides resorting to devastating military force. The toll on human life was catastrophic, with nearly 40,000 Palestinians, mostly women and children, losing their lives, and over 92,000 injured. The conflict has also had a profound impact on Israeli society. The constant threat of rocket attacks from Gaza, the loss of life, and the fear instilled in the hearts of citizens have taken a heavy toll. The war has exacerbated existing divisions within Israeli society, hardening attitudes and making the prospect of peace seem increasingly distant. The Gaza conflict is a stark reminder of the human cost of this intractable conflict. It is a stark warning that the cycle of violence must end, that a different path must be found, or both Israelis and Palestinians will continue to pay the price for generations to come. Section 5. A house divided, Netanyahu and Gallant's public disagreements. Adding fuel to the fire of Israel's internal strife was a very public and acrimonious disagreement between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. This clash, unfolding against the backdrop of the already volatile Gaza conflict, exposed deep rifts within the government and further eroded public trust in the country's leadership. It was a stark illustration of just how fractured Israel's decision-making apparatus had become. The heart of the dispute was the handling of the Gaza conflict itself. Gallant, advocating for a more cautious approach, reportedly clashed with Netanyahu over the intensity and duration of military operations. This difference of opinion, played out in the media and through leaks to the press, painted a picture of a government in disarray, unable to present a united front in the face of a major crisis. Adding further fuel to the fire was a disagreement over a proposed prisoner swap deal with Hamas. Gallant, prioritizing the release of Israeli captives held in Gaza, reportedly advocated for negotiations. Netanyahu, however, took a harder line, rejecting any concessions to Hamas and further fueling accusations that he was prioritizing political expediency over the lives of captured soldiers. This public display of discord within the highest echelons of power sent shockwaves through Israeli society. The Netanyahu-Gallant clash was not merely a personal feud, it was a symptom of a much deeper malaise afflicting Israeli politics. It exposed the deep ideological divides within the government, the erosion of trust between leaders, and the dangerous consequences of prioritizing political maneuvering over the needs of the nation. This very public display of disunity further shook the faith of an already deeply anxious public.